What up, guys? Welcome to the Jiu-Jitsu podcast episode, whatever the heck the episode is, getting really high. So I ain't so good at math, and I think we're in the 300s now. So
316, 315, 316, one of
It's
those.
getting up there, man.
Anyway, I know we've done a lot.
We have done a lot over the last few years, and today's episode will be a fun one for you guys to listen to. As many of you guys know, the Craig Jones Invitational has recently shook up the grappling world, as it's going to go head-to-head with the ADCC, and a lot of people have super strong opinions about things, one way or the other. I've got asked several times, both from my students and from people online, about what my thoughts and opinions are on it, and so figured we would rap about that with Eugene here today, and we will talk about the CGI and the ADCC and kind of just some general ideas around it. And so hopefully you guys enjoy the podcast, and this will be less mainly about. You'll probably get less out of this one than maybe some of the actual specific jiu-jitsu ones, but there's generally some ideas and takeaways from it that could be useful to you regardless. Anyway, thank you guys for joining us today. Big thanks to our sponsors for helping make this podcast happen, so our lovely bearded voices can come to your ear every single week. You can check out Charlotte's Web. Charlotte's Web CBD is one of the premier CBD companies that are out there. They've been around the longest that I know of, one of the longest companies out there selling CBD, and they make great products. Again, I like using CBD as a part of my nighttime regimen to bring things down because, everybody's always interested in recovery and what kind of supplements to take and what's the right protein or creatine or what's this, that, and again, when it comes to training, recovery, sleep, food, and proper training, those are your biggies, right? Getting enough rest, eating the right foods, and then training in a thoughtful manner. And when it comes to supplements, one of the supplements that I like throwing into the mix is CBD. And again, if you guys want to check it out and try it out for yourself, or if you've used CBD before and you like it and you'd like to save some money on it, then go to Charlotte's Web's website, charlottesweb.com, and the promo code is Chewjitsu30 for 30% off the order. Also, thanks to my buddy Matt at Epic Roll. He makes jiu-jitsu gear as a jiu-jitsu practitioner himself, out there competing and stuff still too. He supports a lot of different events, a lot of different competitors, and he's one of us, right? He's a grappler that's out there making cool stuff. He has great designs, good customer service, great quality stuff. If you're looking to get a new gi, new rash guards, shorts, t-shirts, whatever it might be, go to his website at epicrollbjj.com, and the promo code is Chewjitsu20 for 20% off the order. And guys, last but not least, if you want to support our podcast, you can do so by going to our Patreon at patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. And again, when you sign up, you'll be supporting the podcast that you listen to every week, if you do listen to us every week. And then afterwards, you'll also get access to a library of content that has everything from technical videos, recordings of seminars I've done, stretching routines that Eugene has put together specifically for jiu-jitsu practitioners for their warm-ups or for cooldowns, as well as a slew of other content that you might be interested in. If you listen to the podcast and you like it, you will like what's inside the library. And again, you get access to it for a very inexpensive price. And again, that's at patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. And if you want to get my daily email, you can do so by going to my website at chewjitsu.net/join. When you join up, you'll get access to a couple free ebooks that I give away. And then afterwards, you'll get my daily email that ranges from everything from specific jiu-jitsu tips, dieting ideas that I find useful, lifting type of techniques or lifting ideas, again, that I find useful, as well as things like books that I'm reading or just some general rants and rambles with you that you might enjoy. If you like the podcast, if you like my YouTube videos, you'll like the emails, and go ahead and sign up for it at chewjitsu.net/join to join the Chew crew. Recently, Craig Jones came out and said that he was going to run the CGI tournament, the Craig Jones Invitational, to compete against the ADCC in order to get more fighter pay, because he thought that was what was necessary, right? And he said, they were spending too much on production. They should be putting more into the fighters. And, that's this whole thing. And he said he's going to have like $1 million on the line for 2 different divisions. And he's got a fighter, a financier that's backing him, that's going to give him some money. And he's going to run a head-to-head. And, I listened to a couple of his interviews, different podcasts before we did this one, because I wanted to get some ideas to like what's actually going on. I listened to his interviews, and I also listened to Mo from the ADCC talk about it on a live stream about his whole, thinking about it. And, this is me, guys. Again, like, first off, what I'm about to get into, Craig might be 100% on the level and be 100% honest, and Mo could be just lying through his teeth, or vice versa, or they could both be lying through his teeth. I don't know. But my whole thing is, whenever I hear someone come up with kind of sort of a vague, nebulous term, and they're like rallying against someone, I'm always very resistant. This is the idea. If you understand how like the dynamics of control work, right? You want a us against them kind of mentality. So it's CGI versus ADCC, right? And you can look at any major movement that you've seen recently. Like, think about the last 4 years with all the different protests and different things. There's always an us against them. Have to have that, right? It's literally the most power, or the easiest way to bind people together. And then you have to have a very vague, definable term, right? Because if he said like, okay, man, they need to pay $15,000 at least, that would be proper. Or 20. Well, then Mo could just do it. But here's 15. Whatever. Is that what you guys want? 15 grand. Cool. We'll lose a little extra money, right? Because Mo says it's not profitable. We'll talk about that later. But it's not. It's just more pay. What does more mean? What's adequate? We don't know, right? And so whenever I see vague terms with a kind of us against them kind of mentality, which Craig says it's not, but at the same time we know that it is. I'm always very resistant to believe what the person's saying at face value, because I'm like, it doesn't sound very honest to me at first. I don't know what's going on and what the purpose of doing the whole thing is. There's a lot more questions than there are answers with the whole darn thing. But I'm resistant towards it. Going back to 2022, like, it's crazy to think about. And many of you guys, you're in your first few years of jiu-jitsu, or maybe your first decade. I've been doing this stuff since like the early 2000s, right? Like, it's crazy to think about. I got into jiu-jitsu. I started looking into jiu-jitsu back in like 2001, finally started training in 2003. There has never been a jiu-jitsu tournament where it was a spectator event that people came from all around to see. The ADCC is a little bit here and there, but it's very minor, right? I mean, you can go look at some of the old ADCCs and old ADCC championships, and like the stands were always kind of empty and bare. You can go look at the world championships in the gi, they're packed with other competitors. But at the 2022 ADCC championships, I remember walking around with you, Eugene, and like talking to people, and there were tons of people there that had no friends that were competing. They weren't competing the day before. They were there simply as a spectator. I talked to them after it was over, and they're like, oh my God, that was amazing. I can't wait to go to the next one. The only rub that I heard from everyone that was there was like with the announcer woman from Pride. I don't know. I don't know anybody that liked her, right? Like, no offense to her or anything like that. I know that like Japanese people love her, but could do without that. Yeah. But I didn't talk to anybody that was upset with it. Now, here's the thing. That's pretty amazing, because if we want there to be more fighter pay, you have to have a spectacle. You have to have an event. Think spectacle, think spectator, right? One of the rubs with Craig was that they're not paying the fighters or nothing. They're putting it into production, right? Yeah. Well, if you're trying to build a spectator event business that's profitable, then that kind of has to be a kind of a cart before the horse thing. Because how many jiu-jitsu events have come and gone who paid fighters a ton of money, went out of business? Think about the UFC as an example too. And like, they always got criticized even to this day, but they still got criticized a ton back in the day for not paying the fighters enough. Right. And, but you have to remember, how many other people are the UFC paying to make this whole thing happen? You got like the people that are obviously doing the work to set it up. You have the marketing people that literally make you that if it wasn't for the marketing people and the AV people, you wouldn't even know these fighters exist, right? Because they're the ones that put them out in front of you. If it wasn't for the ADCC, you wouldn't even know that Craig wouldn't be a name. Right. He became a name because he was so he came out of nowhere. I think, was it 2015 or 17?
I think EBI was like the first.
EBI was the first
one of the
but like when he came out like in a big way, like the one of the ADCCs, I was like, that was where, at least for me, I was like, oh my God, this guy's really, really good, because he's on the big stage.
It's good. Yeah.
And then he also became a pretty crafty marketer for himself with his persona online.
Oh, 100%.
And that's why we know who he is, right? Same thing with Gordon, some of the other ones. And so you look at this, if the event goes out of business and it's not attracting eyeballs, there are no sponsorships, there's no money to be made, and people can't benefit from it.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of hands that come out. This is a thing. It would be interesting to see if Mo would be willing to release some sort of semblance as to the financial statements, because again, as a business owner, you look at your P&Ls sometimes. So for you guys that aren't business owner, profit and loss statement, you look at your P&Ls, sometimes things can look a certain way, but then when you're looking at the money in and money out, it's like, man, it's tight. Buddy, it's tight, right? And people are going to pay for certain things. It's like I was telling you before the show, right? Like you guys have a really nice facility where you and your wife do your work. Your wife does her massage, right? Someone could come to your wife and say, man, why is your massage so expensive? You're spending too much money on all this, like this nice building or whatever. You need to just like bare bones it and charge me less money. But you wouldn't, but there's something to that, right? You wouldn't pay you wouldn't pay the money that is needed if it wasn't nice, and people aren't going to pay top dollar to go watch a event in a gymnasium, in a high school gymnasium or a non-spectacle event, because they're out there. I remember watching the Who's Number One event, which was a good event. I was excited to watch it. And like the stands were kind of empty, and it's in Dallas. Dallas has a ton of jiu-jitsu. I'm like, where are the fans? Where are you guys? Everybody's talking about more money. And it makes me think of the Bill Burr skit, or the Bill Burr joke, where he was kind of, not really even a joke, but it's kind of a funny like talk about it. He was talking about the WNBA. He's like, everybody's upset that the WNBA players get paid so little in compared to the NBA players. And his whole thing was, he's like, well, if all the women want more pay, go to their games. All the guys are going to the games. We're going to our the males basketball games. If you guys want more money for them, show up, vote with your dollars. It's one thing to talk about it. It's one thing to like talk on Facebook or Twitter about it. It's another thing to vote with your dollars. Go do it. And I've talked to so many people. Like I posted a poll the other day on my Instagram, and I was kind of like talking with people back and forth, and even in my DMs. And I was like, hey, have you ever gone to an event and just went there to watch and paid a spectator fee? Yep. Have you ever paid for a pay-per-view or a stream? And they're like, no. I'm like, well, then how do you think these guys are going to get paid more money if nobody's willing to pay for it? Right.
Sure.
And so I think, again, it's one of those things where it sounds all good. I'm for it. More pay for the fighters. Right. I'm all for that. But also, I don't know what the finances for like with ADCC looks like. Mo says it's unprofitable, which again I would probably believe for the most part. It's always been unprofitable. The guy in Abu Dhabi just runs it as kind of a passion thing, and he's very wealthy, right?
Right.
It's what he started off as back in the late 90s. And then with Craig, like again, I don't, but again, he could be more profitable than not. I don't know. That's why it'd be interesting to see the financials. And with Craig, it'd be interesting to see like, who's backing this, that's willing to spend like millions of dollars and eat it, because you're not going to make your money. He's not going to make his money back on this.
No.
So if you're willing to eat it, how long are you willing to eat it? Is this like a one and done stunt just for marketing purposes to like shake things up a little bit? Or are you willing to eat this for the next 10 years to build it up and maybe build it into something? Or is this going to be kind of like a short run thing, like most other grappling events that came out that said, hey, we need to pay the fighters more and whatever else, and they had no reasonable business plan on how to actually make that money appear, and they were trying to do too much too fast, like all the other MMA organizations back in the day. Like how many MMA organizations went and came and gone because they said the same thing. They said the UFC is not paying fighters what they're worth, so we're going to pay fighters what they're worth. They came, lost a crap ton of money, and then they went out of business, or the guys stopped wanting, the guys wanted to stop hemorrhaging money, and they left. Sure. And then the UFC was still there because they were built on a foundation that took a longer time to actually build, right? You had to actually build the base for it to actually be able to support people in the way that you might want to. But that takes, so that's long-term thinking. Sorry, I'm just rapping on it.
No, it's like, good.
There's so many questions, and you don't even know what's going on.
There's more questions than there are answers. And, I was just thinking as we're talking about it, we kind of learned about the Craig Jones Invitational, maybe it's a month or so or something like that. Like we kind of heard rumblings he might want to do something. However, it's there's a lot of planning that needs to come. You run, you and Jeff and Erica and all, you have a big support team that run the Jiu-Jitsu Opens. Those take a lot of planning. They've gotten probably way smoother and better, but you need reps, number one, and you got to figure out your flow. You got to get everything moved. So this is the first time it's going to go. I mean,
if you're running if you're running it out of like a Thomas and Mack, right? Like, which is what I think what they
14,000.
said. That's a big event. Yeah, I mean, they're not going to be 14,000, but I mean, that's a big event hall, and there's so many little things that have to be done
so many people that need to be paid, right? Security, tickets. How do you manage that? How do you keep everything? So anyway, that's one thing. So I made like a little bit of a pros and cons list.
Okay.
We're going to go down those and we're going to talk about it. So one of the pros of Craig running this CJI, whatever you call it, this Craig Jones Invitational, I think it's brought a lot of attention.
CGI. Why am I saying CGI?
I don't know.
Oh, that's
CGI.
CJI. Yeah, CJI. I don't know why I was saying G.
Yeah, it's all right. Don't worry about it. I said it too.
All right.
So one of the reasons Craig, him running this event, obviously he's been making the rounds on podcasts. We're talking about it. So a lot more attention has been brought to jiu-jitsu. That's number one, right? So that's probably a pro. It's promoting competition. It's promoting, if I do this,
pro for Craig.
It's pro for Craig, but it's also a pro probably for the athletes because, well, we're going to increase. I think ADCC has increased some of the fighter purses. I'm not sure exactly how much it was, but Craig's like, hey, if you show money is like $10,001 or something like that, right? So you get show money. So you're going to get guaranteed payday if you show up. That's number one. So it promotes competition, which is good. And that brings attention to jiu-jitsu. We've got, Craig's been on some podcasts like Errol Helwani's show, which, does primarily MMA. And he's talking about, the grappling, the jiu-jitsu. So I was like, that's pretty impressive, I think, in my opinion. So you're bringing more attention to the sport. Number one, more eyeballs, more excitement. So I think that's a positive.
Possibly. I think from the negative side to it, right out of the gate is that, objectively, it's worse for the fighters. Because from an objective standpoint, because objectively they could go compete at the ADCC, and if the CJI was on a different day, then they could go make more money and possibly win that. And then they would have the prestige and the money to go with it.
It wouldn't have the same impact. It wouldn't. Nobody would give a shit as much.
Maybe not. I mean, because it's like, again, it probably not, because obviously it creates controversy. It's like a fight.
You need it.
But I don't know that, again, it's objectively speaking. We're not talking about emotions. We're not talking about the kind of, we're talking about like money in your pocket. What's better for the person? If you could be a ADCC champ and a CJI champ, objectively, what makes you more money? It's the controversy is better for Craig. It's better for the CJI. It's not better for the fighters. And that's what I'm saying. It's like a politician, like sort of like sleight of hand, right? It's like, oh, no. It's like when politicians want to get more money for taxes. They don't say, hey, I want more money for taxes because I want to give these senators a raise or something. They're saying, no, we're doing it for the kids. We're doing it for the children. Like they raise taxes for some schools that we got to build. They don't ever give the tax money back though. Like when the school is built, they don't say, hey, we're going to lower taxes back down. So again, objectively speaking, I think it's still better for the fighters if it was on a different date. Yes, you wouldn't get the controversy. Yes. Yep. But I still think that if you said the ADCC would be pumping on all cylinders, it would have the star-studded cast, and you could recreate an event that was either at the same or bigger than the one in 2022. That's a net plus for jiu-jitsu. And then if you said, well, then if the CJI comes out and basically talks trash about the ADCC and says, well, they're not paying fighters, we're going to do it the right way. And then they go run their event and it's a huge success. And guys like me who would go to that, because it's like on a different day, right? I'm going to go to the ADCC, but if the CJI was on a different day, I'd be like, I'm going to go to that. And then I could go to that. And then you'd have another big success. You're like, oh, sudden you have multiple events that are running these big shows. What'll be interesting to see, and this is the thing that'll be interesting to see. Do you have a situation where both events run at like 50-50, right? Where instead of having a packed house for both of them, you have like a half and half where people are torn, and where you have like a sort of a torn cast of competitors, and then you have a torn cast or a torn group of spectators, and you have two 50-50 events opposed to like two pumping at like 100%. And I think that, again, it's better for the CJI. I think it's better for Craig, but I think overall. And again, I know that you wouldn't have the controversy about it, but I think if you had more events that were able to successfully run a big event, a big spectator event, then that would be a better net plus for jiu-jitsu as a whole, because it would say, okay, hey, listen, we can do this, opposed to taking the only spectator event that we really have that attracted casual fans that aren't really hardcore competitors and pull them out to Vegas to watch it, instead of going after that and then hitting that, because that's the only event we've ever had that's been like that. I don't think that's necessarily a net plus for jiu-jitsu.
I think
but again, we'll see, right? Because I could be very wrong about this.
You do bring up a good point. We were talking about before the podcast, some of the fighters that are, or some of the athletes that are going to the CJI. I'll just name off a few. You got the Tackett brothers, who are incredible, high level, coming into their own. You got Fionn Davies, who is probably the best female grappler, number one grappler.
Definitely one of the best for sure.
Luke Rockhold, which is a fun name, a fun attention. He kind of brings.
Good grappler.
Nikki Ryan, Nikki Rod, Joseph Chen. Those are all B team guys, which I think you would expect to be there. Mason Fowler, who's one of the best. Roberto Jimenez, who's one of the best. You got Lucas Barbosa, João Gabriel Rocha, and you got Victor Hugo. So you got a bunch of guys and some women that are going over there that are big names. It's going to dilute the competition a little bit. So I think we're not going to get that best of the best. We're not going to get like the best grapplers against the best grapplers, which is ultimately what ADCC is supposed to be and has been. It was the best guys going against the best. So it's going to dilute that. It's going to make it kind of, I think so. But here's the plus there. You're gonna get some guys that have been itching to get in for years, man. They're gonna be hungry and they're gonna come out of nowhere, and they're gonna have like an opportunity maybe they never suspected they would have. You could see some interesting stuff happen. So I think it could be a really good opportunity for and also some guys that maybe were not the favorites to win in their division. They may now become the favorite, and they may have an opportunity to win gold, and that's life changing, I think.
Yeah, well, think about that. Like, think about all the guys in like the UFC over the years as an example, right? Because they have a long history. Think about all those guys who've just come out of like they've got a shot. Big Danny's like, hey man, here's a fight. They take it on short notice and they have a big upset, and it's like, oh my god, who is this guy? So think about that. Like, a lot of times the fighters that get to the ADCC, sometimes there's plenty of good guys that could have been there, but you just ran out of spots. Well, now you have, hey, we got spots open, right? And so you might find that you get some guys that wouldn't have been in the ADCC, and now they're there and they're damn good, right? So it's going to be interesting to see. Like I said, lots more questions about the whole thing than we have answers, right? And I think that's the part where, which kind of, again, that adds to the whole marketing side of it, where everybody's like, what's going on? And, what's going on with the CJI event? Is the ADCC, what are they going to do? There's all these questions. But yeah, it could possibly dilute it. But also, like you said, I think it could also create opportunities for young, hungry grapplers that are like, I just want this one shot, and they finally got it. And it can create for some fun matches. Because, think about, I keep using the UFC as an example. Think about some of the UFC cards where it's like a lot of the younger fighters, like the guys that are still in their earlier careers. Those are sometimes the best fights on the card,
scrappy,
or the best cards, because it's like you get these guys that like don't have anything. They're like, I'm ready to go. Whereas you look at a lot of the guys like, that are leaving, is a lot of established grapplers. You know what I mean? Granted, the Tackett brothers, I'd love watching those dudes, man.
They're so great. They go after it. And they're so young, and they're just getting,
and they're there to finish, bro. They're there to go after it.
Yeah. So it's going to be fun for that. I think like you got the idea of like, all right, some people are really happy about this CJI being free on YouTube versus ADCC. You can only catch it on Flow. And some people complain about that. And I think we were talking about before we started the podcast, like you couldn't even catch some of these matches years ago.
Oh, bro.
10 years ago, ADCC, like try to find some of those matches that weren't on Flow. Like you just can't get to them. There's poor quality. And I'm sure people have gripes towards Flow. Maybe it's not perfect in some aspects, but it's way better than we've had. And you have YouTube, which is way more accessible. You can just log in and watch. However, what's the quality going to be like? And also, you're not making any revenue off of that.
Well, and that's the thing, right? So, okay, everybody wants more fighter pay. So be like, hey guys, listen, we're going to have it streaming on YouTube, but we'll have a private link or something. And you got to pay $10 for the weekend, or $40 for the weekend. You guys want more fighter pay? let's put up,
Yep.
and that's my thing. It's like everybody wants free, but then nobody wants to like support people, but they want more pay. It's like, it doesn't work that way. That's not how that's not how money works, right?
Sure.
It's like, I'm not, for instance, like, if someone like you guys listening, right, you probably have a skill of some sort that you know how to perform, right? And if someone was like, hey, we do this for free, like, well, no. Well, again, if we're going to ask someone to set up the stream and put the show on and share it to the world, what's wrong with paying a little bit? Say, hey, I would buy it,
Yeah.
in a heartbeat, right? Like,
Yeah.
why not? It's like, in the whole thing about this flow, I know flow has some, I don't know all the ins and outs. I don't really follow all the political and jiu-jitsu stuff sometimes. So maybe flow does some nasty stuff that I don't know about. But like having Fight Pass and having flow, dude, it's so amazing. Most people don't even realize this because like they've been in jiu-jitsu for like a few years.
Yeah.
You couldn't find matches. If you wanted to watch jiu-jitsu matches, they didn't exist except for maybe bits and pieces on YouTube. There were no if you went to an IBJJF tournament, you couldn't get your matches to watch. You couldn't watch them unless someone recorded them. And now you can go on Flow, you can watch them. Or like, hey, maybe you want to go back and watch. You find a grappler that you really like, and you're like, man, I'd really love to go down and watch this guy's matches over the years. Well, now you can. You can literally go back and watch their matches for years, and it's a great studying tool. And so it's an amazing service. And there's things I don't like about it, like the Rocket mortgage commercials that seem to pop up I don't know, those was like the first ones. It was like the commercials that pop up every time. I'm like, God, I'm paying for the service and I'm paying for have to watch commercials. But that's sponsorships, right? That's
Sure.
what it takes to run these things. But I couldn't imagine like being upset about it, because I'm like, this didn't exist. This is a cool service and I pay for it. Same thing with Fight Pass. It's amazing being able to just like look at like EBIs and all these other tournaments that they support and being able to watch them. It's so cool. It didn't exist in jiu-jitsu ever. And I think that sometimes we get a little pampered and spoiled, right? Like we're in a really, really small niche sport that is typically like, when it comes to competitions, the only people that actually watch competitions are like kind of they're competitors most of the time.
Yeah.
That's changing a little bit. You're starting to get more spectators in, but it's still only people that participate in jiu-jitsu. And it's not even all jiu-jitsu people, right? Like a lot of people in jiu-jitsu have nothing to do with competitions. They don't pay attention to it. So again, we're in a very niche sport, and competitions are a niche inside of a niche. And so again, it's just, there's not a ton of money in there yet. And so we can be upset about fighter pay, but then if we're not willing to pay for certain services that can maybe enable those particular things to happen, like paying for a CJI streaming, well then then why are we going to be upset about that? So again, with Craig, I don't know what the goal is, because again, you're going to go in and lose millions of dollars, and then
It's not his money.
No, it's not his money, but someone's going to be losing millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And it's like, how long do you keep that up? I mean, maybe the guy is just filthy rich and doesn't need money, right? But eventually you're going to say, man, if I'm spewing out $3 million plus a year for something that I'm not getting much of a return for, eventually you got to start asking yourself questions like, do I really want to keep doing this? So again, I don't know. There's a lot of questions there.
Well, and what's it like? We're going back to the motive, right? Like, is it, he says, oh, I'm going to donate a bunch of money. I want more fighter pay, and I want to donate a bunch of this money to charity of some sort.
Donate what money?
We'll see. I don't know. Like
it's like, how are you going to donate money if it's in the hole, right?
He says he's going to do it. So and we don't know what, because you're not sharing who this person or these people are with the money, right? You don't know. And what's their angle? Are they trying to kind of disrupt the ADCC to bring something onto their own platform or some type of platform? There's some ideas I have talking to some people. I told you yesterday,
Charlie thinks it's the
CJI.
He thinks it's the guy with karate fighter or karate combat, because
that's what we think, man. What if he's right? What if we're right? Because here's the thing. Craig's been over there, the karate combat. He's done the grappling event a couple of times. He's had some pretty incredible victories over there, quick ones. He's used the pit. They're going to use that pit type format, which seems exciting. It's different, right? Because you can kind of use the wall in a way. It makes it harder to run. If you run, it's actually kind of bad, because you don't get a reset, and you almost have this unlevel surface. So it's going to throw you off a little bit. So I don't know. I think that rule set or that kind of platform could be a little bit a unique scenario. I don't know. I think that adds an element of creativity or excitement, that because we're not seeing a traditional, mat.
It's novelty is what it is. It's novelty.
Yeah, it could be interesting. Could be
Yeah, it's
interesting to
novelty. It's like
see.
new. It's different.
Yeah, it's kind of like something different when we see, grappling events in the cage made it a little different. He
Yeah,
used the
it's just a little
cage in
different.
certain ways. It's different. The other thing that he's doing is actually he's doing a from what he said, I don't know if this is going to be the case. He's doing a 10-point must system, kind of like MMA judging. They do 10 points for the winner, 9 or less for the loser of the round, but they're doing 3 5-minute rounds. So I don't know what the criteria exactly is, like what's going to make a 10-8 round or not. But like, what do you think about that as well? That kind of scoring as opposed to, the traditional ADCC half no points, half points type setup.
It'd be interesting to see what happens. I mean, again, it goes to the thing like it's like there's a lot of vague sort of this is what we're going to do, but there's nothing concrete anywhere, right? There's no like explanation as to what that 10-point must system is. What are you grading upon? What's incentivized in that system, right? Are we giving it for submissions? Is it for positional control? Like, again, it's like it sounds like it could be interesting. Like you're doing a 3-round 5 minutes. So like, theoretically you could go out there and like, shake off maybe the first 5 minutes because you're like, man, this guy like came after me. You get a little break in between, might make for more exciting matches rather than like a 15 minutes, strict match. Like,
gives a reset in some way.
Yeah, I mean, like with the ADCC, one of my beefs about them is I don't really like some of their longer matches because I think it ends up just being very passive and boring. And in some cases, when you have the no point round, you could use that as a time to go for submissions, but most people just basically use it as time to kind of like hand fight and try to wear the other person out so that when the points do come into the play, they start to go harder. I would rather just see like a shorter time limit, maybe 10 minutes, and just start points from the beginning rather than, playing the no points round. But it's part of ADCC. But the round system with 3 5s, it could be interesting. I would just like to know more about like, what are they being graded upon? Like what is the scoring on that? Right. That'd be interesting to know. But again, it'll be interesting to see because that's a round system. I always thought about that. I thought it would be interesting to see jiu-jitsu with an actual round system, because there's always been times where like, have you ever done this in the gym where you roll with a guy and like he just kicks your butt or whatever, gets the better of you, and then you're like, hey man, can we go again? You roll with him the second time, and then you kind of figure him out a little bit. You do better the second time, right? So you could even have that where that little break can give you a moment to like shake things off a little bit, and then if you made a mistake the last round, you have a chance to redeem yourself, which in a traditional scoring method, you may not have that chance because you make one mistake, that person may be able to ride out the rest of the match with those points.
It gives you that reset, which is interesting. You get to strategize. You get to go back to your corner and be like, all right, this is the strategy. We're going to now. So I'm going for the takedown. We're going to pull guard or whatever. We're going to go for this type of business, whatever it is. So I think that seems interesting. Could add some different elements to it. Some of the we were talking about like pros and cons, kind of mix them together. But one of the cons for me, Craig's going to be competing against Gabby. I think they signed this. It seems very gimmicky.
We'll see if it happens.
I mean, we had Amanda Levy on the podcast, not saying anything bad about Gabby, but like Amanda Levy, a significantly smaller grappler, was able to control her and beat her in a match pretty convincingly. Craig's going to be, I think he's far superior skill wise. Unfortunately, I mean, I just think that's just his leg lock game is incredible.
Gabby was tough, but nobody looked at Gabby. Nobody looked at Gabby and said, man, she is so friggin' technical.
Yep.
She was big, she was strong, and she would go in and just bulldoze women, right? Craig is an incredibly technical, one of the best male grapplers in the world. And so again, it's a mismatch. But it's like one of those things where, battle of the sex, it kind of creates, like you kind of mentioned it creates like that sort of freak show style, like Pride FC.
I'd watch it just to see what kind of bullshit happens.
What happens?
There's going to be some weird stuff.
What's going to go on, right? Like, what is Craig going to do during that match? Is he going to like do some silly stuff or whatever? I mean, like, what's going to happen?
I don't know, and I think that some of that stuff's kind of interesting in some ways. So I don't know. There's a lot of, like you said, I think the narrative here is there's a lot more questions than are answers. I hope that some of these athletes that I named that have already kind of committed to the CJI, like I hope it's not a mistake for them. I hope it's not a missed opportunity for them to really do something special in ADCC, because I think it's very prestigious. I think like you're an ADCC for people like Fion, like you're going for a legacy thing now. You're going to be like being a multiple time. How many are multiple time ADCC champions? You know, you've got few that are in some of the elite, you know, and I think to be in that company, I don't know. It's like you're in your prime and you're going to go for a payday, which I'm not, nothing wrong with that.
I mean,
Everybody's
yeah,
life situations are different, and hopefully they get paid and you get a guaranteed payday just for showing up, which is
it's nice.
incredible.
Yeah.
However,
That's
like
$10,000 to just to show.
past that $10,000, like what do you have to show for it? Like you did this maybe one-off tournament, and then what came of it? Nothing.
Mhm.
Like ADCC, you're gonna know you're gonna win ADCC. I know some people were kind of like, some athletes were even saying, well, it's not a big deal, you know, this and that, but like you're gonna be able to go on some tours, you're gonna be able to go travel, you're gonna be able to do a bunch of seminars, charge a lot more for your seminars. I think that in the long run, you could potentially make more money down the line.
Here's
So I
an
don't know.
idea for you. Let's say that you had a fighter in MMA and they were, you just got into, let's say you got into MMA in 2015, like, or into Jiu-Jitsu and MMA in 2015. And there was a guy that you could train with. And one of the guys on his fighter said that he was a former affliction fighter. He fought
Yeah,
in the affliction card.
I
Okay.
remember that. Yep.
Right. Now, let's say that another guy on his resume, he says a former UFC welterweight or whatever, right? Which one would you rather train with?
The UFC,
You don't even know anything
yeah.
about him. All you know is that he's got that name next to it. Now, maybe the CGI goes on to become this prestigious event. But in the interim, like if you were a person that knows how to market yourself, then the name of having ADCC next to you is worth more than right now. We don't know much what's going to happen down the road. It could change. But if you know how to market yourself, then obviously having ADCC would be worth more to you, right? You could easily make over $10,000. Like let's say that you went to the CJI and you lost your first round, you got 10K. All right. 10K and $1.
Yep. Or
If you went to the ADCC championships and you lost your first match, but you then had that ability to say, I was at the ADCC championships. Well, then you now have a thing that you can pop onto your profile, your resume, your advertisements, whatever, that's worth a lot more. And again, would I like to live in a world where guys don't have to do that, where they can just go and make a ton of money of grappling? Of course I would. I think it would be fantastic. But again, we got to live in reality. That's not the way things work, right? This is why you look at guys like Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor was coming up in the UFC when the money was starting to get better, right? But what did he do? He marketed himself in a crazy way. He made himself into this larger than life character. Not saying that that's the only road you have to go. You look at guys like Chael Sonnen, another guy who basically marketed himself in and outside of the ring to give himself better profits for himself, because the money by itself just wasn't there unless he made himself more noticeable, right?
Yeah.
And so with that, that's the world that we live in. So again, I don't say it's the way that it should be, and hopefully it changes and there's more money to go around. And maybe I'm all wrong about everything, and like the CGI really just cranks this thing up, and it forces the ADCC into a spot where they have to.
Sure.
And maybe they have to restructure the way they do things. Hopefully they'll still be able to put on a good show that attracts more and more casual fans.
Yeah.
But again, if you're looking at it from that standpoint, you could easily make more than 10K off of just having those 4 letters, ADCC, next to your name, in a heartbeat, right? Yeah. Easy.
One of the guys that pops in my head is Lachlan Giles, who got third. He did the absolute and the smallest guy, and he had some incredible submissions. He made a whole leg locking kind of crazy, all these products, and he got a lot of notoriety for himself for just that performance. And was it 2019 or 18 or something like that, whenever it was.
A lot of people know who he is now.
Yeah, and he's incredible. And one of the guys actually Craig started with. So it's interesting there. I want to ask you this. So this is a question really for us. Now, we went in 2022 to the ADCC. We had a blast, loved it, met a ton of people. It was incredible.
Mm-hmm.
We're like instantly after it was over, like we're going back.
Oh, yeah.
and we are going back. You know, we're
Yep.
like, this is going to be a thing that we do. Now, for you or for the fans going or that have already committed to going, here's the thing. The Craig Jones Invitational is Friday and Saturday. The ADCC is Saturday and Sunday.
Mhm.
Now, that Friday, they have that ADCC Open, which is just like the Las Vegas Open, which is kind of anybody can enter and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So that's kind of different anyways. But we actually, is this good for us? Like, we actually have the opportunity to maybe go on Friday if we want to this Craig Jones Invitational, just kind of see what all the madness is about, but then also get our experience to go see Saturday and Sunday. However, it's not exactly the event that we envisioned, right? With not all the best grapplers in one event. So do you think it's a pro? Is it a con for us, like the fans going?
It's too much, right? It's like you're torn, right? Like now you have to
I
go.
am torn. Exactly.
You're torn. Oh, which one am I going to see on Saturday? Right? Sure, I can go see the finals, but like, which one do I get to see on Saturday? Some of the best matches on the ADCC will be on Saturday. Some of the best matches for the Craig Jones Invitational will be on Saturday. Which one do you want to go see? I don't know. You know, I don't know who that's a pro and con for. I guess it depends on you as a person.
Yeah.
For me, you know, like I'm excited for the ADCC. And I hope people, because it probably sounds like I'm like old curmudgeon man against the CJI. I guess I'm not. I hope that it does. I hope that I'm wrong, and I hope that Craig Jones is
100%.
100% on the level. And you know, what I would like to know also is that if is there a lot of disgruntled people against the ADCC? Are there a bunch of competitors? Because again, this is something that I didn't hear anybody talk about until 2 weeks ago. Was this something that was brewing with a lot of the fighters, people on the inside, that nobody was talking about? You know, that's what I would really like to know, because like, if this was such an issue, why didn't anybody talk about it? Or is it simply like, it wasn't an issue, but hey, there's $1 million on the line, so let's go get it, right?
Well, and if you talk shit against the promotion that is like the most prestigious, I mean, IBJJF and all that stuff's pretty important and pretty big time. However, they never really paid anything. I think they have them Grand Prix. They pay a little bit, but they never really paid anything.
Right.
ADCC has paid, and that's probably like the most prestigious event to win. Like, if you talk shit, are you going to get kind of ostracized and going to say, no, we don't want you back? Or,
well, Mo, I listen to Mo. Mo's like,
you
man,
know,
he goes, people can do what they want to do, and if they want to come back,
I love that.
they can work through the trials and make it back. He's like,
I
I'm
love
not
it.
worried about them, you know.
Yeah.
So, because I listened to his interview, because I wanted to hear what Mo would say too.
Absolutely.
You know, and you know, Mo and Gordon seem to have a pretty close relationship.
Sure.
And so that always makes me wonder, right? It's like, are people upset because of that relationship? And then, like, you know, does that create a dynamic that other people in the organization don't like? You know, that kind of thing. I don't know. These are just questions. It's crazy to me. You know, here's what's also interesting. You know, what's going on there again? Why all of a sudden 2 weeks ago there was an issue that I'd never heard anybody talk about? Because before, everybody was excited about the ADCC. Fighters were pumped about being there. They're excited about the chance to go compete there. And then now it's like, we don't like it anymore. You know, and a lot of the fans too. It's interesting how the fans turned on a dime.
Yeah.
It's so interesting to watch, like, just to kind of be on the outside, and you're like looking at people and they're like, because I did a poll the other day, and you're like looking at people just talk mad trash about the ADCC.
What did the poll? What were the results? What did you ask exactly, and what do you think the result? What were the results?
Let me add Instagram to my phone real quick. So for any of you guys that listen to me enough, you know that I keep Instagram deleted off of my phone most of the day, because I don't want to lose my life scrolling. And I don't have the will, and I don't have the willpower.
I don't either, man. I don't either.
So right here, I just take it off my
real time.
You guys can see it. I take it off and I install it when I'm ready to use it for something. And so I'm installing right now. So we'll take a look at the poll in just a second. But I was just looking at the answers last night, and it was just interesting. Not that people were going to go to the CJI, because of course it's like, if there's a cool event, why wouldn't you go, right?
Do you think we'll go? I kind of want to go on Friday. We're going to be there.
It maybe depends on like how much the tickets are. Can we get a Friday only ticket?
Probably, yeah. I hope so.
I
don't know anything. I don't even know ticket prices.
I don't know anything, right? Can you buy tickets yet? Right? Like, it's going to be happening.
Man. It's so wild.
So it's going to be happening in like what, 8-9 weeks?
What if this is a big joke? What if he's just big joke? I want all these podcasts. I want all this stuff. And like, it's not going to go down. Like, what are these fighters going to do for some reason if it gets canceled? Like, they're screwed. They already, decommitted from ADCC. Are they going to say, hey, welcome back? Like,
I don't know, man. It's all a big mess, right? Because you're thinking like,
I love it though.
Craig could cancel the whole damn thing tomorrow, and it would still be a net
I
positive
love
for him
Craig. I will
because he's
just
been on
watch.
all those.
I just love Craig. I think Craig is like a character.
Let's
I
see the
think
results.
I don't know.
So
All right,
again,
let's
this
see
is
it.
just obviously this
Okay,
is just a this is a
Instagram poll. What was
this
the question,
Instagram.
first of all?
I said I was basically talking about the 2022, but I basically championships, and I just asked them. With that said, are you going to the ADCC or are you going to Craig Jones event or neither? So here's the results: 52 people, 52% of the 1,400 votes said they were going to the the CJI, the Craig Jones Invitational.
Wow.
And then 10%, 52, 10% said they're going to the ADCC. 34% said neither.
Okay.
4% said I don't even follow jiu-jitsu competitions.
So 52 to 10.
52 to 10
said Craig Jones Invitational.
Let's see. Let me check it out here.
That's insane, dude. You can just make plans right away, like, a couple months out. I mean, I guess you can, but like we bought tickets months ago. We got our hotel months ago. Like, as soon as tickets went on sale, we were already like out there getting them, so I don't know. It's very interesting. I don't know. I'm excited. I think that it would be worth going just to see. Like if shit hits the fan, it'll be cool to see. I don't want that to happen, but it'll be cool to see. And then I don't know. It's gonna be interesting.
I'm looking at some of the responses. So what's so interesting is like, the emotion.
Like, are people like angry or like,
yeah, dude, like it's like that's what I'm saying. It's so interesting to watch that, right? Because like 2 weeks ago, nobody was talking about this, and now there's people that are like the Craig
irate
Jones
about it?
fans.
Yeah.
They're like, the ADCC needs to pay more money. I'm like, whoa, like you guys are angry, right? Like it's so interesting to watch that. It's I guess that's the times we live in, right? Where if someone comes up with something like, again, for me, I would like to know, like, I would like to hear Mo, like, hey Mo, like, how much money are you making? How much money are you losing? Where's the allocation of funds going? Like, again, within reason, he doesn't have to show everything, but it would be interesting to see, like, Craig's making claims. Show us what it actually looks like, because that would either tell us that Craig's 100% accurate, or that Craig's just making numbers up and people are following. It would be really interesting to see, right? Because as I've said before, as a business owner, you look at things a little differently, right? Like when 2020 was going on and we were supposed to close our businesses, right? Meanwhile, the city's raising taxes. There's no change to our landlord leasing us the property that we're using. Costs are going up, but then we're supposed to just somehow get by. Luckily we had money in store because we spend pretty frugally.
Sure.
But there's a lot of times where people look at something from the outside and it looks like it's fine, and then when you're looking at it from the inside, it's like very different. Just like I was saying, from the inside with the competitors, everything looked like it was fine with the ADCC. It would be interesting to see, was there something going on that none of us knew about because we weren't on the inside? Maybe I'll send out some messages to some of my friends that have competed in the ADCC and be like, was there something going on that I didn't know about? It'd be interesting to know.
I think that if there's nothing to compare it to, and you're like the only game, like you're the only game in town, essentially, like that, the most prestigious tournament, you don't really have much competition in that capacity. There's not really any incentive to increase, athlete pay. I just don't think there's any incentive there. You can keep things the same. So you can, because people are still filling up these trials. They're still like literally to capacity. So there's no incentive. You're still getting the demand is still there, regardless of the pay, right?
Mm-hmm.
Demand is still there. Now, on the other side of it, you have that incentive, that increased pay, which now you are kind of pressured into doing. Is that sustainable? Like now we're talking about sustainability. Like you said, Elite XC or Affliction. It's not sustainable. You pay Fedor Emelianenko millions of dollars or whatever, paying triple, whatever, way more than anyone was getting paid at the time, basing on one fighter or whatever. You're putting all your eggs in this like basket that you're going to get all this attention because that's how you pull. But that is how you pull the best in the world besides Gordon, because like we said, he's got that relationship with Mo. He's going to make his money regardless. Like that's how you pull these fighters. You have to do something crazy and some way to incentivize, and money incentivizes people, but then you got to look at sustainability. Can Craig Jones sustain this tournament, like he says, annually? If, ADCC for some reason, like, they increase fighter pay and then all of a sudden it's not sustainable for them to do that. Like, are we going to go back down to like a small arena, instead of like, we're going up, like you're Thomas and Mack Center. Now you're going to T-Mobile Arena. That's where UFC events are held now. I mean, it's big time, dude. It's like probably 20,000 seats or something. So,
yeah.
And it's in Vegas. It's big time. So you're not like in some hole in the wall, in the middle of the, Midwest or something. You're in Vegas. Like, this is it's pretty incredible. So that's the questions. Hopefully it all works out. We don't know, but it's fun to talk about and it's good. Competition, I think, is mostly good. And it, there's an incentive now for things to grow and change. And maybe people are going to tune into both, because now they're going to see ADCC is very different look. It's going to be different. So people may be more interested in seeing what that's going to look like. And they're going to be, maybe more people are going to come in and watch the Craig Jones Invitational, and then more may show up on Sunday to watch ADCC finals. So who the heck knows? We might be at both. We'll see like what we hear, what the rumblings are. And I'm excited to be down there.
Yeah, again, I hope my hope, because I was all riled up. I just drink a bit of coffee, so
yeah,
I'm all hyper.
I love it. This is so fun. This is so fun. Like it's so good to talk about this shit and like actually be excited, and hopefully it just adds an element of excitement. So if Craig Jones did anything, like ruffled up some feathers and great
marketing, right? Great marketing to it, created a big stir. We're all talking about it. I hope that Craig's heart is in the place that he says it is.
Craig's the only one knows that.
Craig's the only one knows that. Him and the business guys, right? I hope that, because again, every time he would be pressed a little bit on Joe Rogan or some of the podcasts, he always would just kind of like make funny comments and stuff, and we kind of like shrug it off. So he's never really being like serious for a moment. It's always kind of like throwing in jokes. I feel like half the time he's just testing out like comedic humor that he wants to use. But I hope his heart's in the right place, because obviously if he's doing it for fighter pay and he wants to put pressure onto the big organization, hey, then let's do that. And if he knows for a fact that the money's there and it's not being spread around, then hey, that's great. Let's get some of that money to spread around, and hopefully the fighters are better off for it. Like I said, what I hope doesn't happen is we screw the pooch and we beat up the ADCC at this event and ruin this particular event. And then they have to now go backwards. And instead of being able to make forward momentum, we have to go backwards. And then the whole event that the CJI is going on just dies off, because who wants to lose, $2 to $3 million every year, unless they've got just some crazy money coming in them, and they don't need to worry about it. But $2 to $3 million is a lot of money to lose every year, especially if you're giving away like streams, you're giving away, this, that, whatever. You're going to give away money to charity. I don't know. To me, it's like, why charity? Just pay the fighters more. Right? If you're all about the fighter pay, just screw the charity. Like, they are the charity.
Trying to get some kind of noble cause.
It sounds good. That, right? Well, that's what I'm saying. And that's why I'm so distrusting, because whenever someone comes out with this like very altruistic thing, like, especially when it involves money, right? Like, I would rather him say, you know what, man, Mo screwed me over. I'm tired of this, whatever. And I want the fighters to get paid more money. Join me, right? Opposed to, no, man, we're just hanging out. It's not a big deal. We're just going to try to ruin, like, it's this whole joke. But you're like, no, but you're going head to head. You're trying to ruin their event, and you're still in their best competition. And it's all this big joke. But it's like, again, it's serious business. Because again, what happens if the ADCC goes backwards, and then now we're like, hey, we wanted more money to be in it. We wanted these events to grow, but the one event that we did have that was kind of blazing that trail now is kind of having to rescind backwards. Yeah. So I hope that doesn't happen, and I hope that they're both a big success. And I hope that, again, for any of you guys that are listening to this, if you're one of those people that like you have strong feelings about grapplers getting paid money, then the way that us as like regular people vote is with our dollars.
Yep.
Right. That's how we vote. Right. You look at like big companies when they come out with, campaigns and advertisements that people don't like. What do? People vote with their dollars, and that's how the businesses respond. Yep. And so a lot of times you can make your voice heard with that, because that's what makes these things run. And if you want fighters to get paid more money, show up to the events, go to seminars, go pay for instructionals, whatever, go support those grapplers that you like, because that's what's going to take care of them. So anyway, Anyway, thank you guys for being here on the podcast. As always, thanks to our sponsors for helping make the podcast happen. Charlotte's Web CBD. You can check them out at charlottesweb.com. The promo code there, if you find some of the tincture or you find the gummies or whatever it is that you find that you like, you can use the code Chewjitsu30, CHEWJITSU30 to save 30% on your order. If you guys want to get some new jiu-jitsu gear, whether it be rash guards, shorts, t-shirts, whatever it might be, go to epicrollbjj.com and use the promo code Chewjitsu20 for 20% off the order. It's CHEWJITSU20 for 20% off the order. And guys, if you want to support us at our Patreon, go to patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. When you join up, you'll get access to an exclusive library of content. If you like the podcast, if you like my YouTube stuff, you'll like this library of content. It has everything from jiu-jitsu seminars that I've recorded, warm-up routines, stretching ideas that Eugene has developed specifically for jiu-jitsu practitioners. So if you're a little bit older, need better recovery, you're a little stiff, a little broken, it could be useful to you. And then also, too, it has a lot of different extras with me and Eugene, either talking about specific ideas or extras with the guests that we've had, where, again, we get them to talk about some sort of actionable jiu-jitsu tip that might be useful to you. And again, it's all available there at a reasonable price, very inexpensive. And then also, too, if you guys would like to join my email, which is at chujitsu.net/join, you go to the website, put your email address in. I will send you a daily email, which goes into just different ideas in jiu-jitsu, weight training, philosophy, books, whatever I want to talk about, right? Just a little bit of everything. I'll also send out special discounts and events through that. So again, a lot of times when I have my camps, when I have special launches of products or get-togethers, things like that, it all goes through there first before it ever makes the world at large through other social media platforms. And so if you guys want to get first dibs on whatever it is that I'm doing, you can do that by going to chujitsu.net/join, JOIN. And so, guys, with that said, thank you guys for joining us. If you guys enjoyed the podcast, or if you have strong thoughts, that's cool. Again, I hope I'm really, it doesn't sound this way from the podcast. I'm very neutral on it. Like neither one of the companies, I don't have a dog in the fight. I'm looking at it strictly from like a standpoint of just watching it and going, what the hell's going on? Right. Because there's so many questions. But again, I don't have a dog in the fight. I've never competed. Well, I've competed at the trials and done all right there, but I don't have any money investment in the ADCC. I have no money investment in the CJI. I'm just watching from the outside in, and it's just interesting to watch it. But there's a side of me sometimes where I don't know. If I start getting a whiff and I'm like, I think either someone is leaving something out or they're foolish, and that's, I think it's like, because it's like, they're like, I remember Joe Rogan asking Craig, it's like, are you angry at the ADC? He's like, no, I'm not angry at him. I'm like, are you? Like, it's like, either are you angry or are you just full of crap and you're just doing this for some big market? I just don't know. And so a lot of questions. It'll be interesting for sure, to say the least, about what's going to happen over the next few months. That said, I hope that both events are able to put on good shows, because, I want jiu-jitsu to grow, and I don't want you to have like two big events, like fighting after each other and then end up getting, nothing in return. So anyway, guys, thank you guys for joining us on the podcast, and we'll talk to you next time.